Hello, I'm Kalin, an 8-figure startup founder. Today I'm gonna tell you how I achieved this success with zero discipline. Zero self-discipline, but also zero external discipline, because when you are a startup founder, you really don't have anyone above you to take care of this. So, what is self-discipline? I'll try to convince you that self-discipline is just an illusion, that it doesn't exist in the way that people observe it, or rather think they observe it in the world. I will give you an example which is very far from the present day, about something that happened in the 7th century, about a battle between the very young Muslim country and the very powerful Byzantine Empire, who had just kicked the ass of the also very powerful Persian Sassanid Empire. So what happened in this battle? This was a very important battle. It was the battle of the century. To be fair, not a lot happened in the 7th century, so there's not a lot of competition with other big events. But in this battle, the Byzantines, which are actually Romans, we call them Byzantines only in this day, but they were actually just the carriers of the Roman tradition, they had a very big army. They had not just armies from their own territory, but also had recruited a lot of other nations. It was like an 8-nation army. And you would expect this army to not be very coherent, because for these different people speaking different languages, different cultures. But it was, because it was very disciplined. It had very high levels of discipline, very good command. The Romans have a 1,000-year history of discipline in this matter. The Roman legions, all of these traditions went into this army, and it was very disciplined. It was also larger, better armed, better equipped, and the battle with the Muslims was in a very open field, so there was no opportunity to make an ambush or to make some smart tactics. It was just an open field battle somewhere in Asia, in Yarmouk, actually. The Byzantines were stronger, and several days in a row they attacked. Very often the Muslims were close to collapsing. It was like every day was like a miracle saved them. The front was very close to collapsing. But they held their ground. And after 4 days of this, Byzantines had suffered a lot of casualties, the Muslims too. And the Byzantines offered peace. They offered just a ceasefire. But the Muslims, who were led by the legendary Khalid ibn al-Walid, sorry for totally butchering that, they refused the peace, which was really surprising, because they were still the smaller army, still a worse arm. How could they reject the peace? But this was extremely strong for their moral. They rejected the peace, so they felt like they could win, while the Byzantines were really just they were expecting the peace to be accepted and to just go home. And instead, day 5, you have to fight again. And on day 5, the Muslims attacked the super powerful Byzantine army of infantry and cavalry with just their infantry, which was like attacking an army twice the size on an open field battle. It looked like a very bad idea. The attack went nowhere, but then suddenly all of the cavalry came and smashed into one of the wings of the Byzantine army. And this was done on purpose in this way, because it happened very fast and there was no time for strategic action, like nothing that the Byzantine generals could do fast enough. It was all down to the small commanders to somehow unite the army of 8 different nations. And guess what? Discipline vanished in this moment, because there was no time. People were afraid. Eventually, just everyone started fighting for themselves. And in this situation, the Muslims obliterated the torn up Byzantine army, even though it was still larger in size. So what can this tell us? In order to see what we can learn about discipline from this battle, you can look at the battle from the Muslim perspective. 4 days in a row, we get totally hammered and barely saved the day. There were moments where the front was so close to collapsing that women from the Muslim camp grabbed arms and rushed in to help in the battle. Definitely not an ordinary situation. And if you look at this, you will say, whoa, but still they held their ground, they made counterattacks, they kept parity in spite of being the smaller army. They were very disciplined. So one discipline against another discipline, and in the end, just better strategy won. But that's not the truth, because no discipline can make a woman grab a sword and rush into the fight for the first time in her life. This is possible only when you have true meaning in your life. This meaning could come from religion, or it could come from the woman being worried about her man in the battle, or just about that the battle is very close to collapsing. But whatever it is, this is not discipline. So the moments that were really the turning points in the battle didn't have any discipline involved. They just had courage and passion and creativity, you may say, too, for the woman to join the battle. When you look at an army, you think of discipline as the core factor to make an army good. It's not. All of the really, really successful armies that succeeded against all odds, like if you look at Hannibal, if you look at Alexander the Great, they all had discipline on some level, of course, but they had real passion, really motivated people. They had such strong motivation that you cannot really say if people were disciplined or they just all were motivated and wanted the same thing. It's hard to tell the difference between people following rules because they are rules, or people following rules because they want the best for themselves and the people around them. And so discipline is just an illusion. Whenever it occurs, it's really unclear, is it really the discipline that's doing the thing, or it's something deeper, something more meaningful? And to analyze anything in terms of discipline in this situation just becomes useless. Just analyze the more important things. If they are there, then magic can happen, because discipline can only help you achieve the possible. But with real love and meaning in your life, you can achieve the impossible, things that should not be possible to be achieved, like a smaller army to beat a better, stronger, disciplined army. But anything can happen if you have the right emotions. Why is it so important to look at this battle? Because the underdog won. And in the fight for change, which is the central concept of I Grow Younger, you are the underdog. You will achieve success one time in thousands of times. So whenever you have the chances of success, it will not be discipline that really helps you, because you have to achieve the almost impossible. When you try to set a good routine, to go to the gym, to make a New Year's resolution, you go a few times, and then the seventh time you want to go to the gym, but then your friends say, hey, come out with us, and then you say, okay, I'll just hang out for a small bit, and then I'll go to the gym, and then you go, but then there's beer, and there's a pretty new girl that you've never seen before, and just your discipline falls apart. You don't go to the gym, then you feel bad about breaking your routine and your New Year's resolution, and then the negative feelings crush this good impulse that you had, and you stop going to the gym altogether. And this is how things happen in people's lives. You are the underdog for making change, and you are the underdog for keeping it, at least for a while. So you need something more than discipline for that. And actually discipline can get in the way, because it's something that can only keep the status quo. You can never improve with discipline. You can only not regress. And it's a very important distinction to make. If you really want to aim high in life, you need to constantly improve every minute of every day. Discipline as a core feature of your personal story, it's not so much about improvement. There are some areas in life where discipline has a limited purpose, but in most It's more about deep meaning in being in control mode.